Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing a First Thoughts today. This First Thoughts is on Maria, Scholar of Antiquity. Really cool Gruul artifact commander. It's kind of like Urza, but in Gruul. Seems sweet. You can tap an untapped non-token artifact to add green mana, and you can tap 2 untapped non-token artifacts to exile top card of your library. You may play it this turn. That seems powerful, especially because it says play, not cast, so if you exile a land, you can play the land, which is really nice. This card just seems really sweet. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with this, and it seems a lot of fun for you, but your opponents are probably not going to have too much fun because of what cards synergize with this commander very well. The categories we're going to be talking about today are stacks pieces, and then we got mass land destruction, because the artifacts are tapping for mana, who needs lands? Then we got some cheap artifacts, some artifact synergies, and a bunch of one-off cards and in the 99. So let's just hop right into this with the stacks pieces. There's a handful of artifacts that are only online if they're untapped. So you can tap them so that way you're unaffected by them, including cards like Static Orb and Winter Orb, which you can just tap during your opponent's end step right before your turn starts, and then boom, you get to untap everything while your opponents are not going to be able to. There's also Storage Matrix and Trinisphere, which have very similar ideas to it. They seem very good and very powerful in this deck. As for mass land destruction, there's a lot of really good land destruction cards that you can run in Gruul, including Bender Break, Boom Bust, Devastation, Price of Glory, Ruination, Impending Disaster, Wildfire, Thoughts of Ruin, Orcish Settlers, Keldon Fire Bombers, Tremble, Destructive Force, Epicenter, and Tectonic Break. All of those can really put in a ton of work. You could also run some targeted land removal like Pillage, Acidic Slime, Decimate, and Mulvaney Acid Moss. Those are nice because they also have other utility to them as well. And if your opponents do end up playing lands, you can hate on those lands using cards like Sabo's Web, Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon, Cemetery Gatekeeper, Zozu. Dingus Egg seems really fun, also where the Dingus and Elder Dingus Highlander comes from. Ankh of Mishra, Mana Barbs, War's Toll, Citadel of Pain, Mana Web, and Storm Cauldron. All of those can be very, very powerful. Also, a lot of the cards I just talked about are artifacts, which synergize really well with Maria anyways, because you can tap those for mana. So, really sweet stuff there. And if you're going to be blowing up lands, you might as well run some ways to recur lands. Since you're in green, there's a lot of options, including the Mendiga Dominaria. You have Ramunap Excavator, Splendid Reclamation, World Shaper, Ancient Green Warden, Crucible of Worlds. All of those great includes. And if you can be running cards like Crucible of Worlds and Ramunap Excavator, you could also run cards like Strip Mine or Wasteland, so that way you can continue to blow up lands every turn. Dust Bowl's another good one, and Notvold Slumber Mound is kind of cool because that also leaves you with a 4/4. That seems pretty fun. With all the lands going to the graveyard, cards like Klothys, Titania, Courser, and Oracle seem pretty fantastic. Titania can just make you dudes. Klothys can deal damage to your opponents or ramp you, and then Courser and Oracle just help you get extra lands into play, that way you can kind of run ahead faster after the mass land destruction by being able to play lands off the top of your library, which is pretty nice. Also, you're going to be blowing up a lot of lands. Indestructible lands seem really good for this. Cascading Cataracts, Slagwood's Bridge, and Darksteel Citadel seem like auto includes, especially Slagwood's Bridge and Darksteel Citadel because they're also artifacts. So in a pinch, you can tap them to either add green for some reason, or you can tap them towards exiling cards off the top of your library to play that turn, which is really convenient. And other artifact lands you can run for that same synergy are Great Furnace, Tree of Tales, Treasure Vault, and Power Depot. All of those definitely auto includes in this deck. Next, we're going to talk about some cheap artifacts that you can run to tap them for mana. Darksteel Relic is just an indestructible mana rock. That's fantastic. Jeweled Lotus. You can either crack it to help you cast Maria, Or if you get it later in the game and Maria's already in play, you can just play it for 0 mana and it taps for green. That seems like an auto include in this deck for sure, one of the more powerful cards for this deck. Lotus Petal is also solid because early game you can use it to ramp out Maria faster, or you can just keep it around and tap it for mana when Maria's in play. Memnite and Ornithopter are just 2 0 mana creatures that have this, that get the ability of being able to tap for mana, which is kind of cool. Paradise Mantle, that way you can turn Maria into a mana dork, and the Paradise Mantle is also a mana dork, so that seems pretty great. Tormod's Crypt for Graveyard Hate, Welding Jar to protect your good artifacts, Arkham's Astrolabe seems fantastic, enters you draw a card, and you can use it to filter mana because Maria only lets you tap artifacts for green mana, so you can use Arkham's Astrolabe to turn that mana into red if you need to. And then Sensei's Divining Top, because you can tap it to look at the top 3 cards of your library, which is just really easy. It just seems like a great card. And then you can also use it to draw cards if you need to. It's just a great card. Fantastic for this deck. There's a lot of other cheap artifacts that you can consider for this deck, especially if you want to go kind of stormy. You can just run all of the cheap ones. But these are just the ones that stood out to me as being worthwhile to mention. But if you're going to be running a lot of artifacts, you're going to want artifact synergy cards, including cards like Foundry Inspector, Kuldotha Forge Master, Lodestone Golem, Shimmermere, Hellkite Tyrant could be a fun win con, Darksteel Forge, and Mystic Forge. All of those, fantastic cards for this deck, fantastic cards for any artifact deck. They'll put in a lot of work. And now we're on to the one-off cards. I want to mention Mycosynth Lattice. Mycosynth Lattice turns everything into an artifact. So that means all of your non-token permanents can tap for green mana, or you can tap any 2 of your non-token permanents to exile a top card of your library. You may play it this turn. That seems super powerful. Plus, since it's an artifact, it'll tap for mana. I've always wanted to build a Mycosynth Lattice deck, like a deck built around it, and this could be a good commander for it, because you can also throw in cards like Vandal Blast to just blow up all your opponent's everything. That could just win you the game outright. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with Mycosynth Lattice, and this could be a really good commander for a Mycosynth Lattice deck. Next, I want to talk about Traxos, DRC, Dragon Rage Channeler, and Bothersome Quasite. These are kind of cool cards that have good triggers when you cast non-creature spells or artifact spells. Like Traxos, you tap it for mana, you cast an artifact spell, you untap it. Tap it for mana, cast it, untap it. That seems pretty decent. DRC just lets you surveil. And Bothersome Quasite lets you goad your opponent's creatures, which seems pretty decent. Also, there's some other artifacts that synergize well with Maria and the offline when they're tapped, online when they're untapped thing, including Blinkmoth Urn, Howling Mine, and Genesis Chamber, so you can take advantage of those as well. Also, if you're going to be using Maria's second ability a lot, there's a lot of cards that synergize really well with that, including Delayed Blast Fireball. That card could be really cool for this deck. Fouled Horn can make you a bunch of dudes. Kamiya Celebration seems pretty neat. Nelfeshni is a really cool new card. Passionate Archaeologist to throw some damage around. Wild Magic Sorcerer. This lets you just cascade every time you cast your first card from exile, so that seems pretty sweet. Scare Tiller is a cool card because you can tap it with Maria's ability, and when you tap it, you get the tap trigger of being able to play lands, which is nice. Cards like Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots seem great for this deck. It's just a good way to protect Maria, because Maria is going to be very key for you, especially when you have the stacks pieces out. You're going to need Maria in play badly, and these are ways to protect Maria that also tap for mana, which is really nice. Like you can play Swiftfoot Boots, tap it to equip to Maria, which is convenient. Just makes it better Lightning Greaves, except Lightning Greaves, you can play it, immediately equip, and then tap it for mana too, which is cool. One recommendation when you do deck building for Maria is that you run extra red sources over green sources, because Maria makes it so your artifacts are green sources. So you're going to need to make sure that you have a lot of red sources in your mana base. That's going to be very, very important. The last thing I want to mention is in the 99. There's only one commander I could really find that seemed really good for Maria, and that was Reaper King if you're going Scarecrow Tribal, because you can tap your Scarecrows for mana and then tap your Scarecrows to exile cards on top of your library. There's just not a lot of Gruul artifact commanders, or artifact commanders that have green and red in them. This is like one of the first ones, so this is going to be kind of a flag post card for that. And that is everything I have for Maria, Scholar of Antiquity. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.